Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. We're brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp, remembering the life and legacy of Skip Bertman. Today had Jay Johnson on in hour number 1, Patrick Coogan, good enough to give us a little bit of time as well. We had a right-hander in the first hour. Let's go with the left-hander here in the second hour. Ronnie Rantz, national champion, played for Skip Bertman, has known him for a long, long time. Good enough to give us some time on the Jim's Firearms Hotline to remember the great one. Ronnie, I know it's a tough day, but how are you?
I'm doing fine. I mean, been obviously talking to folks all day long about Coach Bertman, and unfortunately, this is a day we thought for a long time would be coming. And Coach hung in there for 88 years. I've known him for 40, and lots of memories are flooding back today as we're kind of reminiscing and talking about the last 40 years of my life.
When he came up to Alexandria de Menard High School to recruit a left-hander, did you think you'd know him for 40 years?
Yeah, no, I didn't quite know. When I first met him, I think I was in 8th grade. He came up to Baton Rouge. He came up to Alexandria, put on a free clinic at Bringhurst Ballpark there, and it was back when they used to have the free Major League Baseball kids clinic at the box. And LSU would leave town, let the major leaguers do their kids clinic at the box that weekend, and Coach Bertman would take his team to Alexandria. They would stay at the Hotel Bentley up there. They would practice and put on a free clinic one day, and then they would play like a doubleheader inter-squad game the next, open to the public. And it was an opportunity for them to kind of bond before the season started, do an overnight trip, all those type things, team bonding. It was put on by a couple of boosters up in the Alexandria area that helped bring them up there. And I was an 8th grader and met Coach Bertman and was blown away with his charisma and obviously his knowledge of the game. And I used to do that, I think the next 3 years I did that clinic and then got to do it myself as a freshman. And at LSU was the last time that they went up to Alexandria and did the preseason practice, and had a chance to work with kids as a freshman.
Todd Walker texted me today as I was asking some folks for some comments on Coach Bertman to run on our website, and he started with that he was the most intimidating person I've ever known, and he went from that to one of the best people I've ever known. How would you describe Skip's relationship with his teams and how y'all viewed him when you were playing for him?
I think that's a very good assessment by Todd, because he very much. I like to say that Coach Bertman was the John Wayne of college baseball, right? Like, he had this man's man meant charisma, even though he wasn't necessarily a physically intimidating character. He wasn't like a big muscular guy or anything, but he was tall and he had confidence. He made you believe in every decision. Like with the Rougarou and the Gumbo Gators and all the fun stuff I do in the summer, there's a few guys on the team that are questioning when their coach puts on a bunt, right? Like somebody on that bench is going, I don't know if we should be bunting right here. But when Coach Bertman put on the bunt, nobody questioned, is this the right decision? You know what I mean? The hitter didn't question it. The team didn't question it. If somebody gave up a home run, nobody went, man, Coach Bertman, we shouldn't have thrown that pitch. Which that happens, and on every other team. He had so much knowledge, so much confidence. He was able to exude that confidence and made you believe that every button he pressed was the right one.
What was he like when he came out to the mound?
Well, that wasn't always fun, right? Because if he had to come to the mound, it wasn't usually because he was telling you did a good job, So yeah, he was to the point. I can remember a funny story. We were playing in the Superdome. I think sophomore year, and I started the game against Georgia, and I go out in the first inning, 3 up, 3 down, couple punch outs. All right, feeling good. Go out there the second inning and give up like a run, bases loaded, maybe no outs, 1 out, and he comes to the mound for a visit, and he pulls me. And I didn't see it coming. We didn't think, like Antonini was the catcher, and we didn't think when he was coming to the mound he was making a change. We thought he was just going to talk about the situation. And I kind of lost my composure and said a few things and called him a few words and all that, and he just took it. You know, he just well, about a week later, he calls me in my office and he says, "Hey, have a seat." He said, "Hey, remember last week in the Superdome when you called me those names and he told me I was this and that and da 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 da." I was like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "If you ever tell me that again, you're off the team. See, your mother and father, I know them. They're good people. They raised you to be better." I mean, he was just the best, man.
I've never played on a high-level team. I stopped in high school, so I don't know what it's like when Alabama runs out of the tunnel with Nick Saban or when Duke comes out of that tunnel with Coach K. But did y'all feel like when you're in the dugout with him that you had an advantage?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, it would have been fun to see what Coach Bertman would have been like in the modern era with computers and analytics and all the things, right? But he was that before it was the thing. You know, I mean, he watched videotape. He would, you know, like if we went to play McNeese on a Tuesday, he called, you know, Northwestern State, who played them that weekend, and got a scouting report on their hitters, and, you know, Lamar, who played them the weekend before. And, you know, he was doing things that other teams weren't doing. And he was a percentages guy. He played the percentages. He wasn't a big-time risk taker. He wasn't I woke up with my gut and I felt like Rantz should hit in the 3-hole today. He wasn't that kind of coach. He was a percentages guy. And he figured if we do play the percentages long enough over time, you know, then we're gonna win more games than the other team. And but we definitely felt like, again, whatever his scout report is, whatever he says, this is what we need to do to win, we were all in. We were buying it.
What was he the best at?
Well, from my time there, you know, 91, 92, 93, I know that LSU baseball nationally is thought of as a gorilla ball era, but a pitching coach. I mean, the guy was a fantastic pitching coach. Not so much like teaching you the mechanics of your back knee and how you turn your hip and all that, but the mentality of pitching and what you're trying to do and how you set up hitters, and he simplified it, right? He basically put every hitter in a box. You were either 1, 2, or 3. You were either phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3. And phase 1 meant that if we missed over the plate. You know, we're trying to aim for the corner. Maybe we don't hit the corner, but if we miss, we'd rather just miss down the middle. Phase 2 meant if we miss a little off. But if phase 3 was like Frank Thomas, you know, like we ain't throwing him a strike. You know what I mean? And he just, you always had a plan. You know, he might even yell from the dugout, "Hey, we're gonna phase 2 here." You know, and like he just simplified it and really taught pitching and how to attack hitters and again percentages. Hey, can't ever walk the leadoff or whatever. You know, you always had and here's why and pickoffs. I mean, my goodness, we used to have 10 different kind of pickoffs, and we really worked on that. That's a lost art these days.
We talked a lot of baseball there. He's not coached since 2001. It's been 25 years. What has he meant to you beyond that? And I know that reaches to a lot of your teammates as well. We just talked to Patrick Coogan.
Yeah, I mean, he morphed from being like you said, the Todd Walker said, the intimidating old coach and all that, to, you know, probably the middle phase. You know, the last 10 years, he's been that grandfatherly figure in my life. But, you know, for a big stretch there, probably when he was the AD, he was the advice phase, right? Like he was the business advice phase, and he was the, you know, "Hey, I want to bounce this idea off of you," and all that kind of stuff. You know, he loved that, by the way. He loved knowing what's going on with his former players and, you know, knowing what was happening in their lives. And he'd always ask, "Hey, hey, I mean, you making any money doing this? You know, is that working for you?" You know, he always wanted to know about business, and he wanted to know what you were doing. And he was so proud of all the little wins that people had in their lives.
And I've talked about this a little bit in my first hour, but you have been in the same shoes that I've been in the press box up there at the box. I've told people that his love for LSU baseball did not end when he left the dugout. It burned bright a long, long time after that, until his last days. Talk about that over the last few years, where he was up there and he wanted to know what Jay was doing with this guy and that guy, and how much he actually loved the program after he took his hands off the wheel.
If you ever sat with Coach Bertman and watched a game, whether it was at his house, whether it was sitting at behind home plate or in a suite, whatever the case may be, and really any sport, right? Because he was an old high school football coach at Miami Beach High. So when he watched LSU football, he was watching it also from a coach's perspective. But he basically gave play-by-play of everything. You know, like he would grimace, like you'd be sitting with him and the guy would, you know, make a bad play or the pitch would just miss. He would just kind of make a noise. You know, he'd be like, Gosh, whatever. Like he was a coach to the end and loved LSU with all his heart. And I really think the relationship that he and Jay Johnson had over the last 5 years extended his life, extended the quality of his life, because Jay and him really had a connection. They really loved each other. Jay valued Skip's presence and advice and the whole 9 yards. And I really think it made the last few years of his life extremely enjoyable for Coach.
I'm assuming y'all got sports shorts tomorrow, and you'll have a lot of memories and some guests talking about Skip.
Yeah, much like you're doing. We'll have a tribute show. I mean, it'll be 2 hours of Skip Bertman, and we'll have tons of guests, and then a little bit of what the heck's going on with Jay Daniels talk. But that'll be tomorrow from 10 to noon on ESPN.
We appreciate it, Ronnie.
Thank you, buddy.
That is Ronnie Rantz, a national champion with the Tigers. Certainly knew Skip very, very, very well. I'm telling you that for those that are just hopping in the car and didn't hear me say it in the first hour, Skip was into those games till the finish. He was grinding it, and it was a treat to watch for me in the press box, because I came in to paying attention to LSU baseball in the middle of Skip Bertman's run. I don't remember 91 and 93. I was 3 and 5 years old. I do remember Warren Morse's home run. I ran around my house like a crazy person. The first year that I was really locked in, I watched the 97 World Series where they, of course, won. I was locked in on the 2000 team. I knew that team position by position. My dad and I came down to the Super Regional. They played Chase Utley and UCLA. But I was at the end of the Skip era. And so I didn't see the transformation of LSU baseball that he established. And then when I got down here, I didn't have a personal relationship with him, but certainly did spend some time around him up in the press box and seeing him observe some games, because Doug Thompson's in there in the radio booth, and oftentimes Ronnie Rantz or Ben McDonald is in the TV booth. And so those are guys that played for him, and he wanted to go in there and talk to him, and I'm in there a lot. So I got a chance to see him watch some baseball, and man, he loved those Tigers, and it's been a treat to continue to talk about Skip. We did it for the entire hour number one, and we'll do it coming up 15 minutes from now with Steve Schneider, who was the longtime sportscaster here in town, was the sports director at Channel 9, and watched the rise of LSU baseball under Skip Bertman. So we'll talk to Steve in 15 minutes. There is some disappointing and slightly concerning news out of Saints camp. I want to spend 10 minutes on that, and we'll get back to Skip stories with Steve Schneider coming up in 15 minutes. It's a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Neil and Melissa have been running Boudreaux's Electrical for 40 years. 40 years. So they started things up right about the time that Skip Bertman cranked up LSU baseball, right? And that's how long they've been at it. And they've been serving the people of South Louisiana with Generac home standby generators ever since. They have not changed their phone number in 40 years. So if you called 397-1562 in the 985 area code back in the late 80s, you got Boudreaux's Electrical. And if you call 985-397-1562 today, you'll get Boudreaux's Electrical Services. You get that Generac home standby generator, a local team to install it, a local team to monitor it, a local team to do repairs and maintenance issues. That's what you want with that generator, because you need it to come to life when that power goes out. It's Boudreaux's Electrical Services. You can find them online at boudreauxelectrical.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
We are brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp here on this Friday. A little bit late for lunch, but certainly acceptable on a Friday afternoon. So swing on by Government between Foster and Jefferson. Get you some crispy fried catfish, jumbo Gulf shrimp, those crispy shoestring fries. They've got your coleslaw as well, hush puppies. My 4-year-old tried a hush puppy the other day. He won't eat anything. He tried a hush puppy. He loved it. Check it out over there at Corks. They've also got some really good specials, like their loaded baked potato that's covered in crawfish etouffee, topped with jumbo fried shrimp. It is incredible. And if you want a po' boy, there's not a better one in town than the one over there at Corks. They also love to feed you in bulk. Got a high school tailgate coming up. You got a birthday party or retirement party, family reunion, whatever the case may be. Tailgates are coming up for LSU and Saints. Check them out at Corks. They're happy to feed you in bulk, get you those big old trays. Check out the menu, corksfishandshrimp.com. All right, troubling news, I would suggest. I think that's a fair adjective to use, troubling. Devastating is certainly not right, and irrelevant is not right. I think troubling is pretty much on point. As Jordyn Tyson left practice yesterday, and the media was there, and he went up for a ball. There was a collision. He came down, went to the ground, came up, and as according to reports, multiple people, jogged off gingerly and didn't return. Hamstring, we'll see. And Kellen Moore met with the media today and used the term gathering information. So I'm not a doctor. I don't play one in real life. And I don't know. I wasn't there, and I'm not Jordyn Tyson. But gathering information to me sounds like, okay, we got to do some imaging and figure out what's going on, because this is not just like, oh, that kind of tweaked it, I'm good. There's something wrong with Jordyn Tyson's hamstring. Now, I don't think he blew it out. I don't think he's going to miss 2 months. But they're gathering information. And we're hearing that potentially it could leak into the season. And, like, that is concerning, because the season is 3 weeks away. So if you're telling me that we're dealing with something that might linger for 3 weeks with a hamstring at this part of the calendar, that is a big concern. And, like, y'all know me, I'm never afraid to admit when I had a take that just aged like milk. And I told you draft day, like, I think Tyson's a great pick. I'm willing to go with the upside here. I think it's a position of need. I think they badly need to upgrade there. I think that you got to put people around this young quarterback. I think if you're going to extend Chris Olave and pay him an exorbitant amount of money that might be an overpay, you're going to need to come back on the back end and get a cheap wide receiver that can really help you. And the best way to do that's in the draft. And I like the Tyson pick, and I understood the injury risk. And the Saints have taken it as easy on him as they possibly can. The Saints walked him through OTAs and rookie minicamp. He stood on the sideline for a lot of it. I mean, kid gloves. And then we find out there was a bit of a setback during the draft process, but the Saints vetted it and they liked it. And then they let him go in training camp, which you should. They baby him as long as you can. You got to get the rookie wide receiver ready to go. He's never been in an NFL camp before. He's never played in a preseason game. He's never played an NFL game before. He doesn't know the offense. He's got to get out there and get reps. Got to play. And he goes out there, and you have your first joint practice where the intensity ramps up as high as it ramps in the preseason. Like, the joint practices with the starters are the most intense preseason reps that you have all year. They're more intense than the preseason games because most of the guys who give the best reps, who are the starting players, aren't out there in the preseason. Those are guys that are likely to get cut. So these are the most important reps he will have had all quote-unquote fall, we'll call it late summer, in training camp, and he gets hurt. And Kellen Moore came to the podium and said, look, this has nothing to do with his previous history. Any player at the position who would have gone through that issue where he got hit and his leg slipped, like, anybody would have gotten hurt. And, like, I don't know, but I don't think Kellen Moore knows either. He's a football coach, not an orthopedic doctor. It doesn't matter if anyone else would have gotten hurt or not. It matters that Jordyn Tyson is hurt. And this is not like a broken finger. It's not like, a separated shoulder where things recover. This is a soft tissue thing that can recur and recur and recur. And you're talking about a guy whose best attributes are his explosiveness, both out of his breaks and in the air. And if your hamstring is not right, you can't do the things you want to do. And when you do the things you want to do, you put your hamstring at severe risk. So those of you who said this is a risky pick, I don't like it, you're unfortunately looking pretty sharp right now. Those of you who said, who cares if he got hurt in Arizona State? He's awesome when he's healthy. Draft him. Like me, you look like a goofus right now. We don't know everything. And maybe he's back late next week. They get the imaging done. They do some treatment. It feels better over the course of the next 4 days, and it's no concern at all. But that's not the vibe I'm getting when you tell me that potentially this thing could be lingering for 3 weeks. Because at that point, 3 weeks from now, how quickly can you ramp it up? And how much confidence do you have that ramping it up isn't going to make it worse? Hamstrings will act up for a long time if there's not a ton of rest. And you're running out of time for rest, right? Like, you're still in the middle of camp, and you still got 3 preseason games to play, but it's a big, big bummer that Jordyn Tyson's going to miss a bunch of more time because now he's not working with Tyler Shuck. He's not getting reps on the field. He's sitting there doing very little. And that's a huge, huge bummer for New Orleans. Now, I do want to speak briefly for the next 3-4 minutes about the preseason game tomorrow. None of what I'm looking for in this game has anything to do with Jacksonville's personnel because I don't know who's going to be out there for them. It's just about the Saints personnel, who they decide to play, and what it looks like. I would love it if Spencer Rattler played really well. I think that provides the Saints with an asset if he does. Same goes for Zach Wilson to an extent, however much he gets out there. You'd like both of your quarterbacks to really play well so that potentially if somebody wants to come in and give you something for them, they can. And just for their development if you do need a backup quarterback over the course of the year. But the position I'll be watching the most closely, there are 2 of them, but one more so than the other. The position I'll be watching the most closely is running back because I don't know who's going to be out there. I don't know if you're going to see, you're not going to see Achin or Kamara. I'm confident in that. But, how much Devin Neal is available? I don't know. How much Ostrick Estime are you going to see? I would imagine some, but I'm not sure. Ty Chandler is a talented dude who's had some highlights, apparently, in camp. So I'll be watching to see what those guys look like running the football because I do think there is a spot open that has a lot of competition there right behind those 2 guys. And I'm curious to see if anybody can grab it. Is Kendre Miller available? I never know. Day to day. I never know if he's available or not. So I'll be watching the running backs because somebody that plays at running back tomorrow is going to make this team. And running backs get hurt. Alvin Kamara's up there in age. You need a third back. Somebody's going to make the team from the backfield. So I'll be watching the running backs for sure. And then curious about the interior defensive line. I think that's interesting. Can Christian Miller play? He's back from that injury. I'd like to see him get some reps. I think he's in line for that as a rookie. I want to see Vernon Broughton. I've heard great things about what he's looked like in practice, so I want to see what he can do. You're going to get some younger players on the defensive line that play, and I'd like to see those guys flash a little bit. I think Stutzman will play right behind them, and that's interesting as well. So there are some things to watch with this game on Saturday. It's all to be taken with a grain of salt to some extent because you never know how vanilla a playbook is, and most of the starters aren't out there in the first preseason game. A lot of the guys you're playing against are going to get cut. A lot of the guys you're playing with are going to get cut. But I'll be watching defensive line, and I'll be watching running back tomorrow, Saints-Jags. So we'll see how that all looks. We'll certainly talk about it on Monday's show, and we'll get Ross's reaction up there at LouisianaSports.net if you want your Saints coverage. You can find it for free on LouisianaSports.net. All our Saints stuff is there at Hunt on Saints on YouTube, wherever you find your podcast. So that's a little look at the Saints. We'll get back now to the topic of the day. That is, of course, the late Skip Bertman, who passed away this morning just after 1 o'clock. We've talked to Jay Johnson. We've talked to Patrick Coogan. We've talked to Ronnie Rantz. And we'll take a little bit of a different look when we come back. And we'll talk to Steve Schneider, who is here's a local TV reporter for the duration of Skip Bertman's time in Baton Rouge. Saw it in its infancy. Saw it at the top of the mountain. And certainly enjoyed every minute of that ride, I'm confident. So we'll talk to Steve in our next segment. I'm very much looking forward to that. Haven't talked to Steve in a little bit. So we'll do that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
GoTro's Outdoor Power. GoTrosOnline.com. GoTrosOnline.com. Check them out. 2 locations. Airline Highway in Baton Rouge. And, of course, in Gonzales as well. Gant Gotro and the team over there have incredible deals. In August, you got up to $1,000 off select Gravely, Skag, and Hustler zero-turn mowers. 0% financing is available as well. Again, that's up to $1,000 off of Gravely, Skag, and Hustler zero-turns. 0% financing is available if you go by and see them. So if you need a new zero-turn mower, whether you have one that's at the end of its life or you just purchased a new property or you got something that you've got to manage, you need to do zero-turn, the grass is growing like crazy, go by GoTro's Outdoor Power. You get the greatest in customer service as a local company, but also the National Hustler Deal of the Year, 2 of the last 3 years, with the largest inventory in the state of Louisiana. 2 locations, Airline Highway in Baton Rouge and in Gonzales. It's GoTro's Outdoor Power. They're online at GoTrosOnline.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Spent the vast majority of today remembering the life and legacy of the great Skip Bertman, truly legendary figure at LSU in Baton Rouge, state of Louisiana, in the college baseball world. And one guy who was there for a lot of Skip Bertman's time here in Baton Rouge, Steve Schneider, longtime local sportscaster, former sports director over at WAFB Channel 9, good enough to give us some time on the Jim's Firearms Hotline today. Steve, I know it's not the greatest of circumstances, but I appreciate the time.
Hunt, I'm glad to talk about Skip Bertman 24/7. When something like this happens, you kind of pause for a minute and think about that person's impact on your life and other people's lives. And I honestly am telling people, I think Skip Bertman was the most impactful sports figure in the 48 years I've been in this for the teams and the fans that I deal with.
Can you paint the picture? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry to cut you off there.
I can't think of anybody that's been more impactful. I mean, you could say Drew Brees, the Hall of Famer, or Sean Payton, or Nick Saban, or Dale Brown, but I think overall of his career, Skip Bertman is the most impactful person.
It's certainly a great case to be made. Can you paint the picture of what things were like in this town when Skip showed up from a baseball perspective?
Well, I got it all covered, that's for sure. Like as a student broadcaster, I did LSU baseball games in stereo. Paul Burt was the engineer. We started that before anybody else in the country. And it was stereo audio of 20 fans and 50 birds at the box.
Keep going.
There was more birds chirping than there were people talking or yelling, and Skip's legendary for saying when he was interviewing for the job, he saw the people sitting in the stands with their arms folded and this just very terse expression. There was no joy in Mudville when the Tigers were playing at the box.
When did you realize that he may be onto something?
Oh, right away.
Okay.
I mean, this guy, he used to say, you need to get the information. Well, he came to Baton Rouge. He saw what, basically he's working with a blank canvas. And he had been at Miami. Let's give Ron Frazier and the Hurricanes credit. He was immersed in that program, which did all sorts of promotions and had fans and a really great baseball team and a really great pitching coach who became the head coach here. And a lot of what he did was just try all that stuff here. And, it's amazing what you can do if you sell your tickets really cheap. You have clean bathrooms, you have good concessions, and you have good ball players who know what they're doing because the coach knows what he's doing. And that's what immediately happened. My first year with Skip, I was the PA announcer at the box. Richard Condon did the next year, and then Bill Frank has ever since. And I got to see firsthand all of that stuff.
And Bill was on earlier with Charles Handegriff and Jimmy Ott, and he talked about Skip's willingness to meet with the media and wanting to get some interest. And he mentioned your name, since y'all would show up at practice, and he'd pull guys off the field to interview with y'all so that there could be some promotion for the program. What are your memories of the promotion and using the media at that point to try to create some interest in Baton Rouge?
Hunt, his office was open door to fans. Like you could walk into the box and walk into Skip's office, and if he was sitting at his desk, he would talk to you, much less the media. No, he was totally accommodating, and he knew that's what needed to happen because, LSU football, men's basketball, those were the kings on campus. Baseball was a quote-unquote minor sport, and, only a couple of years removed, the coach of the baseball team was the football manager. So, they had a garden growing in right field, like things that you just can't make up. But he quickly, pivoted and, was taking his show on the road to every community group that you could think of, speak at every speaking engagement. His kids would go stand in a grocery store with schedules and hand them out. And, of course, he taught the other programs, the other quote-unquote minor sports, to do the same thing, women's basketball, gymnastics, you name it. And I think that's, one of the reasons he was the most impactful is because he didn't just do it for himself. He set out a path and a blueprint for all the other sports on LSU's campus and for all the other SEC programs that could do baseball. Because back then it was just Mississippi State and LSU really doing it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I talked to Ron Polko this morning. He was sharing some great stories. Do you have a favorite press conference or moment with the media of Skip, whether it was early on or whether it was toward the end?
Well, he used to make fun of Polk all the time. I remember standing at the podium and saying that they were playing Mississippi State and they were going to have a good defensive game plan because they were stealing his signals. And then he said, well, the Mississippi State signal for stealing a base, and then he did his little fingers in front like a little person running to second base. So, I mean, he was great. He was great with the media, and he wasn't always funny. He was also very serious, very tough. Any player that played for him will tell you that. Like, he didn't mess around, but he made it fun for the players at the same time. And, not just making the players available, but a lot of those players were allowed to speak freely. Nick Saban made players available, and they just said the same company line. We're sticking to the process. We're going to, he was never like that. And baseball lends itself to that. You're sitting in the bullpen every day talking, right? You're sitting in the dugout 90% of the time talking. So it was just a fascinating transformation, and it happened in a big hurry. It didn't take a lot of time before they were winning, going to a regional, winning a regional, getting to Omaha, getting back to Omaha. And, of course, 7 trips to the World Series. I got to see a lot of it firsthand.
Do you think the cratering of LSU football in the early 90s helped fuel the baseball fire?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The timing was perfect, because once his program had really arrived was when football was at its lowest. And don't forget, after that, basketball cratered.
Yeah.
So in that stretch, that decade, 91 to 2000, you had football struggling, then DiNardo kind of brought it back, and then you had basketball struggling and Coach Brown leaving. So, yeah, and it got to the point where he was such on the money every year, people were ready for baseball like as soon as the last football game was played.
It's crazy. It's amazing to go back in the time machine and think about this thing. Steve Schneider is our guest, longtime sportscaster here in town and former sports director over at Channel 9. Is there a favorite game that sticks out to you of the Bertman era?
Well, I mean, anybody would easily say it was the Warren Morris home run, and I was not in Omaha. By that time, Victor Howell, one of my interns, had risen to a fantastic level of covering baseball and doing live coverage. I was actually sitting in the studio because back in those days, CBS did the championship game,
Yep.
So it was on our air. And I'd bring in former players to sit with me while Victor was out there. But, I mean, how could you ever create a better script than the 50th anniversary and a guy like Warren Morris winning the game that way? That can never be topped. There are a lot of other really great moments at the box, in regionals, in Omaha. But to me, that just takes the cake.
You've talked to a lot of people over the years that played for Skip Bertman, that coached with Skip Bertman. The guy off the field, what can you say about Skip day to day?
Well, he was a family man. He never had a son to play baseball. He had all daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife, Sandy, was right in there with him, the queen of LSU baseball. And between the camps and the promotions and the travel and taking a lot of those boys on the team and treating them like their sons, that was very evident. Some of them didn't necessarily need that. Some of the Louisiana kids already had families, yet he still gave that to them. And I don't mean that he just coddled them. I mean that he was tough on them. He would make sure that if they didn't understand what was expected of them, they were going to find out in a hurry. And that's what young people need. They need that kind of tough love and the family love at the same time. So that's what he provided on a daily basis. He was also, as I said before, he was always an information guy. Get the information. The joke is when the box was hosting, the old box was hosting the SEC tournament or a regional, the field didn't drain, and it caused a big headache, a lot of problems. A lot of games were backed up, just like we see now with all these lightning delays when there's no lightning anywhere near the stadium. People were frustrated, so he looked into it, and he found out that the field was mostly river silt, and it absorbed the first wave of rain, but after that, the water just sat there, and they had to pump it out. And they told him, well, you need to get Georgia clay. So he goes to the administrative guy that would do that, the grounds guy, and said, we need to get some Georgia clay. And the guy said, well, where do we get it? In Georgia. It was always something like that, a funny story of kind of the hoops he had to jump through to get things the way he wanted them. But he didn't back down from any challenges, that's for sure.
Last one here, Steve, and we appreciate your time so much. When you think about doing the PA at the old box and you think about the birds chirping, and then you think about now with the SEC Network and the 12,000 people at the box for Super Regionals and what the College World Series has turned into and how many LSU fans show up every single year, even if LSU's not there, this wasn't let a hold when they're there and they're playing for a championship and there's 20,000 LSU fans up there. Like, what do you think about that transformation and the vision that Skip had in the early 80s that had to have blown any expectation out of the water?
Absolutely. Again, we did a special architect of a dynasty, and he certainly was the architect putting every piece in place. But I've told people that he also laid out the blueprint for how other sports could raise funds and get fans in the building or wherever they were competing. He gave the SEC a blueprint. If you build it like this, they will come. And look at the SEC now and the ballparks they have and the fan bases. There's a lot of wannabe LSU schools that are approaching or exceeding what the box has. All of that was his. But I think one of the other biggest impacts was every little kid in Louisiana, the day Warren Morris hit that home run, they remember where they were, and they instantly wanted to be a baseball player. My kids were the same way. I brought them to Omaha in 91 when they were the number one team going into the season. And even though they weren't the number one seed, they were the number one team when it was all settled. And my kids loved baseball over every other sport right after that happened. And then you just multiply that by all those years, all those teams, and then what came behind him, all the other championship teams and good. I mean, that's a game-changing type thing in Louisiana to have that much love for baseball from the grandparents and the retirees all the way down to the little kids.
I got chills when you just said that because I was an 8-year-old kid on Brittany Drive running around my house like a crazy person, and I'm probably sitting in this chair right now because I love baseball that much in LSU. So that's what happens. You're dead on with that, Steve. So much appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hunt.
That's Steve Schneider, former sports director at Channel 9, was here the entirety of Skip's time in Baton Rouge. I wanted to get so many perspectives on Skip Bertman today because as I opened the show, I didn't know Skip personally. I interacted with him on plenty of occasions. I didn't know him. I can't get up here and give you my Skip Bertman story about this or that, but Steve Schneider can, and Ronnie Rantz can, and Patrick Coogan can, and Jay Johnson can, and they all did. But I wanted to kind of close our thoughts on Skip today with just my personal account. It's all I have. I don't pretend to be something I'm not, and I didn't know Skip that well. But you can connect some dots here to me being in this chair and doing what I do because of him. Because my favorite sport was always baseball. And when I was growing up, LSU was the best at baseball. And yeah, I was in Tiger Stadium in 1993 and 4 as a 5 and 6 year old, and I remember that. And I went to the Independence Bowl in 1995. It was a big deal, and I remember that. And I was in Tiger Stadium in 97 when they beat Florida, and I remember that. But I remember Warren Morris hitting a home run, and I remember going to Skip Bertman baseball camp. And I've always loved LSU, and I've always loved baseball. And LSU being the best at baseball just fueled that. And so when I got down here, like that was my love. I didn't miss a home game ever. I get in for free with a student ID. I went to every game. I went to every game my first year. It was Paul Maneri's first year. They didn't make the NCAA tournament. I didn't miss a game. And that passion put me into journalism and got me a first job. And my ability to cover baseball was what Shea Dixon hired me for at scout.com because he didn't want to go cover baseball. So I was like, I would love to cover baseball. How do I cover baseball? And he let me go cover for scout.com. And then I got a job with BBI. And this station leaned on me some, especially in the early days of the morning show, to talk baseball because that was not their expertise. Not to say that I'm an expert on baseball, but I like it, and I like to think that I know something about it, and I certainly do a lot of research and could provide something to the show, and so they kept having me on. And now, because they knew of me as a guest, it got me into this chair to do things moving forward. And I got the chance to call LSU baseball games in Omaha in 2025. I got to sit next to Chris Blair while LSU was playing against Arkansas and UCLA calling LSU baseball games. And that's in part due to Skip Bertman. And that's not, by any stretch of the imagination, an important part of his legacy. But it's the only personal touch I can give to it. because I wasn't here in 1993, and I never played baseball for LSU, and it wasn't a friend of mine. That's what I got. But he made a difference in so many people's lives, and you could make the case he made a difference in mine. And there's probably some of you out there that have got a Skip Bertman story that no one will ever know, but it's important to you, or he made you feel important that day, or you spent Saturdays and Sundays at the old box with mom and dad, or with your grandfather or grandmother, or with your uncle, or whatever the case may be, or your brother. And LSU becoming what it was in baseball was part of your upbringing and one of the things that you did to bond you closer with someone else. And we talked about it with Steve, like the football program stunk. So maybe you weren't going to have fun there because they were getting their butts kicked by everybody. But Skip Bertman impacted a lot of people. And that's what we spent 2 hours discussing. We'll come back and close the show next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Always a pleasure to tell you, my friends of the Highland Insurance Group. They're online at highlandig.com. Jonathan Carbo and his team, they're awesome when it comes to benefits. Group and employee benefits, they can do it all day long. And if you've just had a bad renewal or you're dreading your upcoming renewal to ensure your company with health, dental, vision, call the Highland Insurance Group. They are having success helping people cut some costs there and make sure at the same time that your employees are insured so that you can acquire talent, that you can keep talent in-house. Jonathan Carbo and his team do this all the time. So if you've got a renewal coming up and you'd like to get a second set of eyes on it, a second opinion, a second option, they're an independent broker, contracts with many, many carriers. They can help you out. It's the Highland Insurance Group. Jonathan Carbo and his team are online at highlandig.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Every single day, Hunt Palmer Show presented by Ochsner. Families getting ready for back-to-school season. Ochsner Health's reminding parents success in the classroom starts with overall wellness. That means checking on your kids' mental health, not just grades. Pay attention to changes in their mood, behavior, and create some time to connect. Encourage some open conversations about how they're feeling. Nutrition plays a huge role, and Ochsner recommends packing balanced lunches. Proteins, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and getting kids involved in meal planning so healthy choices are more appealing to them. If they're involved in sports, that can help reduce stress. It can build confidence and improve social skills, making it a great way for kids to stay active and engaged throughout the school year. They've got convenient access to primary and pediatric care, and that can help families stay on top of annual wellness visits, immunizations, sports physicals, and routine health needs throughout the school year. If you're looking for some more tips on helping your family start the school year in a healthy way, Ochsner.org/BR. That's www.ochsner.org/BR. Awesome show. Obviously, not the circumstances you want with the passing of a true legend and icon in Skip Bertman, but an opportunity as we talked to four folks who have known Skip for a very, very long time. We talked to Jay Johnson at the top of the show, and that may not be the longest relationship of the folks we talked to, but certainly an impactful one. And Jay cherishes the time that he had for 5 years with Skip Bertman as a head coach at LSU. Jay chronicled the first time he talked to him and first time he met him, said he was so nervous. You can catch that interview on demand. Had a good talk with Patrick Coogan, who has known Skip Bertman since he was 9 years old. When Skip moved down to Baton Rouge, his dad was involved with the program, and Cougar was great talking about all of that. Ronnie Rantz, of course, a long-standing relationship with Skip over 40 years as a player and then as someone in here in the Baton Rouge community. And we just wrapped up a conversation with Steve Schneider, who was the PA guy the second year of Skip Bertman's time here in Baton Rouge. And I guess that would be 1985 prior to the time they got to the College World Series. I believe that was in 88 or 89, the first time, 86 maybe, the first time they got there with Ben McDonald. But a great chance for those four to reminisce about Skip and to celebrate his life. And that's really the point. I know that today is a tough day for a lot of people, and certainly mourning and grieving is expected. And I just feel it's also a time to celebrate an amazing 88 years that Skip Bertman was on this earth and impacted the many people that he did. I gave my talk about Skip at the top of the show and then a little bit more personally there in the end of the last segment. But the entire show is available on demand wherever you find your sound. Search Hunt Palmer Show. Our LSU content's always there at Hunt on LSU. I've got a column up at louisianasports.net right now about Skip Bertman. Rivers has a really good one from a Mississippi State perspective of how she grew up at Duty Noble Field and how it was a big deal when LSU was in town. And she hated Skip Bertman then and owes him a thank you now because now she's raising her kids as college baseball kids, largely because of Ron Polk and Skip Bertman. Very good column. That's up there. And I'll have a great piece that's coming up tomorrow morning with quotes from more than 20 of Skip's former players. So check that out at louisianasports.net. We'll recap Saints and Jaguars on Monday. Matt's going to drive you home. I know Ryan Terrio is going to be in, so it should be an emotional show and a great one. See y'all. Have a great weekend.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC. Online at FabryChevrolet.com. That is, of course, FabryChevrolet.com. I've been telling you all month, and we're there halfway home, where it's the 14th. But they've got incredible deals on trucks right now at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. So if you're looking for a Chevy Silverado, they've got them. 2026 Silverado 1500s, 0% APR financing for 5 years, plus no monthly payments for 90 days. No payments for 3 months. That sounds really nice on a new ride. If you're looking for a GMC Sierra, they've got it. 2026 GMC Sierra 1500s, 2.9 APR for 72 months, plus an additional $1,500 in allowance for the month of August. So you got 2 weeks to get by, but don't wait. Get on by tomorrow. Highway 61 in St. Francisville. The entire inventory is there online, and the website is so user-friendly. Search new, pre-owned, mileage, price, make, model. It's all there at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. They're online at FabryChevrolet.com. Fabry Chevrolet,